Okay, we are a little bit ahead of schedule, but we're going to just keep rolling here with our last session of the day, I believe it is. This is the CAO and Deputy CAO getting the relationship right. In every successful municipal administration, the relationship between the Chief Administrative Officer and the Deputy CAO plays a pivotal role in shaping strategic direction, maintaining organizational stability, and preparing for leadership transitions. But achieving the right balance of authority, responsibility, and collaboration isn't always straightforward. Our brand new board member, Valerie Critchley, CAO, and Melissa Osborne, Deputy CAO of the town of Amherstburg, have joined us and will share firsthand insights and proven strategies for building a strong, trust-based partnership. Please come up while I introduce you a little bit more specifically. Valerie has been the CAO for the town of Amherstburg since 2022. She is an experienced lawyer, municipal and corporate leader with over 20 years experience in all aspects of municipal and public administration. She has extensive experience in labor relations, labor negotiations, and finding creative and cost-effective solutions to difficult challenges. And I will also say Valerie is a friend of mine. Melissa has been the Deputy CAO for the town of Amherstburg since 2022. She has over 20 years of municipal management experience with extensive knowledge of capital and operating budget planning, asset management, grant funding, information technology, energy efficiencies, and business process change. And I will add that he is also becoming a friend of mine. Now you can see how this relationship works. Together, they
teamwork out of the gate. Yeah, absolutely.
So please welcome Valerie and Melissa.
Well, good morning, everyone. And I will start by saying thank you to Peter, and Melissa and I are both keenly aware that we are what stands between you all and getting on the road before a holiday weekend. So we'll try and keep this concise, but of course, happy to take questions at the end if anybody has any. So as Peter said, I'm Valerie Critchley. I'm the CAO from Amherstburg.
And I am Melissa Osborne. I'm the Deputy CAO for Amherstburg, as well as the Director of Development Services. So what does a good partnership look like? And we chatted a lot about that before we started our presentation. And, you know, we thought about it and we put together a list of great partners that we've known over the years. And I would ask that if any of you are like our EA and don't know half of them, please don't tell us. We do not want to be aged out again. But, you know, all these partners, they have their pros and cons. They have the same vision, though, the same goals. They might argue and bicker, some in really funny ways and some even funnier. But they come together and they have their strengths and weaknesses and they complement each other on how they move forward. And despite the fact, if you were here yesterday, when Val and I were planning on coming in here, the elevator literally opened. She walked out and we looked at each other and went, "Are you kidding me?" We did not plan that, but not only do we have the same vision and goals and work, we kind of do in fashion as well sometimes.
So when we were preparing for this presentation, we really thought about what combines to make a great partnership. And we started talking a little bit about the analogy of baking a cake. So for any of you that are bakers, you'll know that baking is a pretty precise science in terms of putting together your ingredients in the right proportions. And it really depends on the right mix of ingredients. So really for us, a strong partnership is a great blending of complementary skills and traits and experience and bringing those to the mix in the right proportion. And then the trust that we build, the communication, really what Melissa was talking about, the shared purpose and vision and strategic goal setting for the organization is really the binder, the leavening agent that really elevates the relationship so that we can be a productive team and help move our senior leadership team forward. So really when that right balance is achieved, that's what where the magic is. And also if you're a baker, you know, you put all the ingredients together, but it's really the chemistry between all of them that really makes it work. And that's really where we found the basis for our partnership. So how did we get here? We'll just give you a little bit of history. in the leadership evolution for the town of Amherstburg. In October 2021, I joined. The town had gone through quite a tumultuous few months in terms of organizational change. They'd had the departure of a CAO and several senior staff directors and other key staff people. We had an interim CAO, Tony Haddad, who I'm sure most of you know. And Tony invited me to come and join as the Director of Legislative Services. I had recently left the city of Windsor after being there for 21 years. And so I did join as interim director. And what really stuck out to me in Amherstburg, I said to Tony at the time, I'll come on an interim basis just to check it out and see what it's all about. I don't want to make a long-term commitment right now. But what really stuck out to me was that even throughout all of this turmoil and change, the staff were incredibly, they all had their heads down a little bit, and didn't make a lot of eye contact at first because so much was going on for them. But they had so much passion and commitment to the town and the citizens. And there was really a good nucleus to have a great, strong team and really create something special there. So that's what kept me interested. Tony was great in allowing me to participate in a lot of the recruitment of the senior staff that he had to undertake. And right around that time, Melissa, who I had worked with at the city of Windsor, although not closely at all. We never really worked on projects. We were kind of totally different areas. We knew each other. Funnily enough, we found out later we started on the same day in 2001, but okay. We had kind of connected earlier in that year through a little side gig I do in fashion. And she reached out to me and said, would you mind sitting down and having lunch with me? I kind of feel like I need some career advice. So we had lunch and I came back and I said to Tony, I'm not sure where this woman fits in the organizational chart, but we need to hire her. We need her skills. We need her experience, and she's looking for a change.
And so as Val said, we never really knew each other. I had a respect for her and her position and generally what I knew. We shared our fashion sense, as you could see from that other picture as well. And so for me, I had spent 21 years at Windsor. I really enjoyed my career, loved it there, but I felt like I was stagnated. I wasn't sure that I was actually going to continue to move my professional forward. And so I thought, Val's not at the city anymore. She was at that top leadership and she's a pretty frank person. She's going to tell me as it is. And if there's something I need to work on to take it to the next level, she'll let me know. So as she said, we went for lunch, got some advice. I came home, fired up my computer. An hour later, she calls and says, any chance you got a resume ready? Can you get it to me right now? And next thing I knew, about 3 days later, I was chatting with her and Tony, and many thanks to Tony for shaking up my world and saying, how about you try development services? You know nothing about it. You're going to be great. So February 2022, I started. There was a brief interlude of a different CAO, and Val was deputy, and then she, rightfully so, became CAO, and I became her deputy CAO along with director of development services. So it was a new role in the town, and they bundled it all together. And so
I will say I give a lot of kudos to our council for seeing the benefit and having a deputy CIO position. And, I think timing is always everything. And I think they saw with the upheaval they'd had in the organization, they saw the benefit of career development from within, succession planning, really investing in your people and moving them through, and having that bench strength in your senior management team. So they bought into the concept of a deputy CIO, which isn't always an easy thing to do, especially in a smaller municipality. And I think it did work because it's not a standalone role. It is bundled with quite a large portfolio that I like to add things to every once in a while, just to keep.
yeah, she gave me finance and IT on top of the others. It was fabulous. I do have to say, because Tony's in the crowd, funny story. The day I signed my contract agreement and it's done, Tony walks in, shakes my hand, and goes, by the way, your manager of planning just quit. Thank you. The one person left. I just wanted to really shout that out, Tony. So one of the other things we noticed within our first 6 months of working together is the number of times where she would say something or I would say something and the other would go, I was thinking exactly that. So our vision and our strategy around leadership, around people, around where the corporation needed to go, around how to deal with council and how to help our team through what was a pretty earth shattering. There's a lot of people that really went through a lot when that upheaval happened. It was great to see we had so much synergies around that.
So in thinking about this, we really felt that there were four prime ingredients that help build our partnership, our professional partnership, and leads to its success. So the first one is humility. And what we mean about that, and we're each going to speak to it from our own perspectives, but as I said before, in our view, this is a development opportunity role. It's there for someone to build strengths, get experiences in areas of the corporation that maybe they've never had the opportunity to experience before. And so Melissa is a very capable woman already, and she's building a great new set of skills too. And, you know, as a CAO, I can't fear a capable deputy CAO. I once had someone say to me, "Oh, you have a deputy CAO, aren't you worried she's going to take your job?" And I said, "Well, if she takes my job, I'm not doing my job." So, you know, you have to have that confidence. And luckily, I'm not a micromanager by nature anyway, but I really do avoid micromanaging her in her projects. She's got big ones, and they're like high profile in our community as well. And when she's got a project, she takes it, she runs with it. I don't need to be in every meeting with developers or with her project team. You know, she builds the strategy, of course, keeps me in the loop. And I make sure that she gets the credit for doing that with council, letting them, you know, they may come to me with a question for the project, and I'll say, that's Melissa. She's running that one. So that's really, really important. And, you know, for me too, it was being self-aware where my own gaps are and not feeling bad about that. We all can't be, you know, 100%. Don't tell my husband that, you know, I'm not perfect, but, you know, I came from, as I said, I'm a lawyer. I was legal counsel. I was in purchasing risk management. I was a clerk and a license commissioner for 14 years, had HR. I have those kind of governance pieces. Melissa has a strong finance, IT, project management skill set. So really a really good natural fit, places that are not my you know, wheelhouse at all. So just being self-aware, I really didn't want a mini me. I didn't want to clone myself. I wanted someone who's going to be complementary to my skills.
And so from a deputy CAO standpoint, it's really important to understand that you are supporting your CAO. You're not in competition with them. It's, you know, you're the deputy, you're not the CAO at this point in time. You're building your skill sets, you're raising your profile. You know, you need a deputy CAO that realizes they're not there to undermine what your CAO is, but to work with them and gain knowledge and experience. And really, it's a practical leadership and hands-on growth. So as Val mentioned, there's my skill sets are not in the HR, union negotiations, purchasing, contract management. Those are where hers are. And so I've benefited greatly working as her deputy CAO and having exposure to all of those things now. I've been in union negotiations. I've been in camera meetings, dealing with significant negotiations on purchasing or contract issues that I didn't have exposure before to, that she welcomed me into those conversations. And the other thing, you know, there are times where there are meetings in camera or with people or whatever it might be, where she does not include me in it. And I recognize and understand it is for no other reason than she had a reason. And if I need to understand, then I will. And if I don't, then I don't need to. It's not personal. It's just where it needs to be at that point in time. And so we like to really consider this, know when to park your ego, because sometimes ego can get in the way of a successful partnership. And we have strongly found that parking that ego is really important.
So the second element, of course, is trust, key for any partnership in life. And so I try to involve Melissa pretty early and often in files or things that I think might crop up when I might not be around, if I'm on vacation, the weekend, that kind of thing. And it really builds confidence in, you know, they might not be her files to run, but sometimes she'll sit on a phone calls or a meeting just so she knows the lay of the land. And it kind of builds that seamless knowledge base for us. And it builds confidence for me that if I am away, or, you know, need her to take a meeting or that kind of thing, our approach is going to align, and we will have talked that, and she'll kind of know where the vision is. And so, for example, after today, I'm going to be on vacation for 2 weeks, and it may actually be the first time that I do not take my laptop with me, because I know that she's up to speed on the files. She knows when I have the confidence in her and the trust that she knows when to make the decisions, what needs to happen right now, what could wait. And if she needs to call me, I know that she will. And I have that confidence that she's going to do that. So that is a really big thing, because we all need that downtime, and knowing that things, even if there is a fire, it's going to be put out while you're away is really, really important.
And so I really hope not to make that call. And if I do, she's going to have another mimosa in the morning for sure. So as a deputy CAO, know when you're really confident in what the CAO's position or answer would be, and know when to ask for clarification, because I've gotten to the point where I certainly know when Val will make a certain decision on things. And so it's easy for me, but there are some things where I know maybe that's going to need a little bit of her thought process on it. There could be something political going on in the background, or, you know, based on some other things I know are happening, she may be taking this in a different direction. So I just want to touch base with her on it. Learning by observing and paying attention. So I spend a lot of time, you know, I'll read her emails. I'll take a look at how she's approaching either council or the community, or a particular matter internally when it moves forward. I also really enjoy, because we sit across from each other in chambers, and Val has one of the best poker faces, and I aspire to do it, but I'm not sure there's enough Botox to control this face.
You know, it's just years of Prozac.
Also, building trust, you eventually get to have the ability to have very frank conversations with your CAO. So there are some times where I'll have a conversation and I'll be like, are you sure that's how you want to take this? Have you considered looking at it this way? And, you know, having the rapport to be able to have that conversation, and that she knows whatever the answer is, she'll either give me rationale for it so that I understand her perspective on it, or and it might not be a decision that she changes, in which case I go forward and execute it exactly the way that she wants it done, because that's what my job is to do, to make sure the rest of the leadership team and everybody below us is following the lead of the person that's responsible at the end of the day. And so with that, you know, the third item that we talk about are clear roles and boundaries. And so, you know, for me, it's similar to the relationship that administration has with council. My job is to give Valerie the best professional advice that I can, and then to execute her direction. And it's as simple as that. And I think it works well. And, you know, just like council, they'll take consideration. She doesn't have to Google it though to know the answer. She actually really knows it, because she has the best professional advice already. Unlike, I think we talked about it before, where council will use AI tools or Google to tell you how an engineered road should be built. But thankfully, she actually knows. So understanding the difference between knowing when to answer and when to defer, that becomes really important, especially if you start to notice that some other members of administration are trying to do the mom and dad thing. If mom says no, well, dad say yes. So, you know, we really try and make sure that we test for those things, that if there's a situation that she knows somebody's probably going to source out whether or not I think the same way, she'll give me a heads up and I'll do the same. And sometimes I'll just say to the person, you know what? Why don't we go talk to Val? That's a really great question. I'd love to know her perspective on it. And that kind of shuts it down, so that I make sure I'm not crossing the line and setting any corporate leadership decisions that may not be aligned with where she really wants to go.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it is, again, and I've kind of alluded to this already, it's that stay in your own lane kind of perspective, in terms of if Melissa has a project and we're at council, she's answering those questions. Even, you know, a lot of times, you know, councilors will ask the question to me, I will defer it to her because it's her project. And that is important, but it's also knowing, as y'all know, when you do need to step in, because ultimately as a CAO, the buck stops with me, and I have to know when to jump in. A very good example of that was, we had a pretty controversial issue in Melissa's area. She and her team had written a report. They were doing a great job of answering the questions, and we got to a point where one counselor made some pretty inappropriate comments that went to Melissa's professionalism. And I just hit my microphone and I took over at that point and kind of said, Counselor, that's inappropriate. We can lead you to this and not the next thing. And, you just have to have that awareness of when that is appropriate. And Melissa knows that didn't mean I didn't have full faith in her to defend herself. It just was not appropriate for her to have to defend herself in that moment.
I think Val realized I might have become unprofessional based on that comment and saved me from myself. So the last topic we want to talk about is good cop, bad cop. And it was funny, one time we got asked by somebody, well, who's the good cop and who's the bad cop? And we said, depends. So really, we have strategized in advance of meetings. Sometimes we do it on the fly as to who's going to play good cop and who's going to play bad cop in a particular situation.
Yeah, and as Melissa said, often we'll do a pre-meeting plan and kind of say, and recently we had one of these where I said, well, I'm going to go in kind of nice and soft and breezy, and then, maybe you can hit them kind of hard with some of the financial stuff.
And then they asked a really bad question that I realized somebody else was going to be bad cop.
And then I decided that no, that wasn't going to happen. So I very quickly flipped to being bad cop, and it was actually a Teams meeting. So Melissa just knew in the moment that, okay, we're doing this in a different way, but because we kind of done the pre-planning, we kind of know how that works. It worked out. And one of the other big things we will do after our meetings is just that debrief in terms of, obviously how do you think that went? How do you think that comment landed? What was the body language like over there? And then obviously, doing the next steps, follow up and those kind of things.
Yeah, and always strategizing to say, okay, are we making sure that the objectives of the town are being met? Are we actually going to make sure that these folks are still aligned and feel like they have working relationships with, the administrative team? And so that's always our goal at the end of the day.
Yeah, we were in a meeting one day, and it was a development issue. So Melissa was leading the meeting and I'm in the meeting, and I didn't really say too much and made some notes, and I had to leave to go to another meeting.
And so as she was leaving, the developer, who was rather cocky in the meeting, shock, I know, says, don't worry, I won't hurt your municipality, to which Val,
oh, I won't let you.
and then she walks out the door and he looks at me and he goes, well, who is she? I said, oh, that's our CAO, and she absolutely won't let you. And he goes, okay. And that was the end of that one.
So just finally, from my perspective as a CAO, it can be lonely being the top position, and you are where the buck stops with you. And I had have a very good mentor who was a CIO in Windsor for a number of years, and I had worked with her at a director level as she progressed in her career. So we had a pretty good relationship. And the day that she was made CIO in Windsor, I sent her an email and I just said, so happy that you're in this position, and if you ever need an ear or need to vent, I'm always here. And she told me about a year later that of all the emails she got that day, that one really meant a lot to her, because it can be a difficult position dealing with the mayor and buffering your staff and doing all those things. And there are days where I do just need a safe place to vent that, isn't at home. My husband hears it, that's fine. He kind of gets it. You can never really get it unless you're in it. And so last week I had an issue where I was so mad, and we were about a half an hour from a council meeting, and she came, I said, got a few minutes, and she came up and I literally just vented, said some bad words. And she just really kind of sat there, and I said, okay, thank you. I just really needed to get that out, or else council was not going to go well tonight. And you need to have that trust to know that it's not going to be used against you in the future. It's not going to come back to you. That person has your back, and it's a safe space. So I really thank her for being that person for me.
Got to be the vault.
Yeah. So that's, in the end, what you're trying to do is build a partnership that makes your whole team better together. And that's what we try to work towards. And hopefully some of this will help you in your municipalities as well.
And yes, that was a work event for a 1920s themed event about 3 weeks ago. And our EA thought that was the perfect ending, to which I cracked up when I saw it.
And yes, I did have to email her and say, oh, on Amazon, they have great dresses. And by the way, I bought the green one. She said, okay, I'll get the.
I said, good, I'll get the red.
Thank you. And we're happy to take questions if anyone has them back.
I think it became a great venting moment. They're gonna do what?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're saying not in our municipality, but our mayor is kind of he's a pretty chill guy. He says he's not going to use them. I wouldn't see it in a good partnership changing it, to be honest. I mean, I think there was a slide yesterday, and I'm sorry, I can't remember which presentation, but it was basically saying that CAO is in a strong mayor situation. If your staff is going to see if you're retreating into a safe space to save your own skin. I will say for myself, I've been in a situation of leaving somewhere, to be perfectly honest with you, not of my own choice after 21 years. And it can be devastating. So I get it, that fear of having to move on. But you know what? We are all really smart, capable people. And, tomorrow will come, for sure. So I think, I don't think it should change the relationship. I think that you've got to have your staff's back. I think you've got to lead the same way you always have. And if that's not working with your mayor, you always have to have a good relationship with your mayor anyway. And if that's not working, then okay, find somewhere where it is going to work. Because, we're all strong and capable and we've got a lot to give to municipalities.
Can I start with that? So, the organizational upset that Val spoke with started from CAO down, and the people that were left were offered acting CAO, and none of them wanted it. So, when the deputy CAO came up, I had been pretty clear with the other senior managers. I'm like, look, I'm really interested. Anybody else really interested? And everybody kind of stepped back. So in that particular situation, it wasn't, because nobody was really in a position that they wanted to take it on.
But it is a good question, because I do, we have 4 other directors. And I think there's probably 1 or 2 that might have some interest. As Melissa said, we were just pretty lucky to have a clear table to kind of set an organizational structure that worked. But I've had chats with some of the staff members, and they do aspire for things. So it's like on a day like today, they get to be acting, those kinds of things. So I think they see that there is a progression there, and they're young in their career. But I think that is something that would have to be managed. But luckily for us, it wasn't that big of a hurdle. Yeah, so I'll be pretty honest, safe space. Melissa kind of alluded to when they, after they'd had this big upheaval, they were recruiting for a CAO. Tony was the interim. I applied for it, I did not get it. Somebody else came in, and I basically made it very clear to them that the only way I'm staying here is if I'm made deputy. So that was kind of fun. Played the card, that worked. But I think to count with Melissa, so then I got elevated like less than 3 months later. And I told them I wanted to keep the role. And I really think because of the experience they had with, like, they lost a CAO, I think 2 directors, a clerk, it was crazy. And so I think they really saw the benefit of building that bench strength in your team, so that if someone does move on, you do have someone who is interested, wants to step up, all those things. And as we said, I think what really sold them on that was combining it with another position. So, she's not just wearing one hat. She's really good value for money. I'm here to attest to that. And I don't think they have a problem with, this could be the next CAO. I think they wanted to see that because, we all know how difficult recruitment and attraction can be. They saw how much time it took, how much money it takes, how it hadn't worked out well for them in a very short period of time. And I think they saw some real value in knowing what they would be getting.
And if I could just add to that, the other thing I've noticed is, like Val said, she's off in the next couple of weeks, and council knows that I'm the person to talk to. And it's like talking to Val, and if I need to reach out to her, I will. But that gives them some comfort that when she's gone, they can still get their answers, right? They don't have to try and figure out who in building or planning or infrastructure services or parks they need to get to. They know that if you give it to me, I'll get it done just the way that Val would as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. How, round of applause for